You're listening to Jai Long, and this is Make Your Break. Today, I'm speaking with one of my favorite photographers ever, Oli Sansom. So I met Oli when I first started my photography career, probably back around 2013. And Oli was probably the first person in my life that I was starstruck when I met him. It's funny because so often we are starstruck by like maybe big celebrities or big online personalities. But for me, I think I just respected Oli's work so much and so deeply that I thought if I met this guy, will I still like his work as much? I wanted to get to know the genius behind some of my favorite images. We used to share a studio around the corner from each other, so as we were both coming up in our careers, it felt like we were bouncing off each other and we're both sort of getting bigger opportunities and bigger things were happening. It was cool to share that space with someone that I admired. Now, the cool thing about Oli is to this day, I would say he is my favorite photographer. I have watched his process when he takes photos, his creative process. I've watched how he talks at workshops. Everything that he does fascinates me. I feel like he's in tune on a deeper level with his aesthetic, his process, and he's always pushing boundaries, making things that make you question or look twice. He has a unique way of looking at the world. It was really important for me to go and have a conversation with Oli. He's been on the podcast once before, but I want to have him on there once more to bring you an insight into his mind, how he thinks about processes and everything else. Now, before we get into today's show, a couple of things. I have a book coming out on the 3rd of November and it's on pre-sale right now. So you can actually go to makeyourbreak.co and you can pre-order this book. And if you do, I'll be very, very grateful. I want to one day get onto the New York Times bestseller list, and to do that, I need to get some pre-sales of a physical book, and that's why I've got that out there. And I want to impact as many people around the world as I can with the teachings of how you can not be stuck and you can evolve into that next level calling that you're going after, your purpose. So the link is down below, and go ahead and do that. And if you want a screenshot, send something to me. I'll personally say thank you on Instagram at jailong.co. But other than that, get into today's episode, and yeah, I'm excited to hear your feedback. Oli, Jai, do you think people prioritize, or creatives, artists, prioritize visibility over mastery today?
Oh, juicy. He started with the juicy ones out of the gate.
That's right.
I'm going to say 100% yes. 100%. And you can't blame anyone for it, but I totally think that's the case.
And how do you think that is affecting creativity and art and what we're producing?
I mean, there's two things kind of happening there at the same time, though. On one side, you've got everything's been democratized. That's wonderful. You can make great work in a way that is more easy and accessible, and that's, obviously a huge positive. And on the other side, you lose the nuance of seeing ways things can be made differently, ways that you can lead or start a trend, ways in which you can advance something to maybe the best version of itself. And I think it all depends if that's important to you. If you're making, if you speak purely from a service provider perspective, can you make someone happy and feel like they've invested well if they don't receive something reminiscent of a Baroque painting? Well, yeah, of course. I would argue there's so much joy and market separation. There's a lot of artistic and business merits, I think, to going back and focusing on the craft side of things, for sure. And I love seeing that those two schools of thought are always fighting each other. There's always someone that's on one side or the other in the zeitgeist. But I think good art is good business.
Yeah, do you think like right now, especially with AI and there's like more visibility, it's more accessible to get your stuff out there into the world than ever before. Do you think mastery should take a more prominent place in your world as a creative, as an artist?
I think there's benefits to it. It depends what you want out of it. If you want a service business where you can travel, make people happy, great. You can get that without, achieving, in inverted commas, mastery, I suppose. But holy Batman, it's so cool, I think, to focus on the craft side of things. You can argue that the payoff comes quite a bit later. I remember back to living in a share house and just agonizing so long over images, and to a point where, if I showed my account and the time spent, they'd be like, yeah, dude, so, you could literally do anything else on the planet and make more money than this. What are you doing? And if you don't kind of pull up your bootstraps and become aware of that earlier, you can do what I did and spend years earning no money and all that sort of thing. But the payoff comes later when, your client base is suddenly full of people that are work as art buyers or work as amazing creative directors or uh, people inside Hollywood who have a high level of visual literacy and they want what you do because you spent all that time in your share house in your pajamas working hard at the craft.
Would you say someone like, let's say Wes Anderson, someone that's really an amazing artist, but obviously prolific and prominent in the art world. Someone like that, from the outside, it kind of looks like they don't really compromise their views and they kind of are going all in on like, this is the artistry or the mastery that I want to do. And maybe it wasn't mainstream when it first started, and maybe, it wouldn't have the big blockbuster budgets and stuff. And then after a while, now it's like, you can't not notice them, So even though he wasn't going for visibility, maybe now like you can't not see him because mastery is so much bigger.
There's so many interesting proverbs, none of which come to mind because I have the memory of a Sith. But nonetheless, there are so many proverbs around, the idea of burrowing down and quietly to your own devices, and then that whole thing of, overnight success actually being a 10-year process. And I don't know Wes Anderson's history, but his aesthetic is wild, and the level of buy-in he would need to have from his team to execute that vision is just, there's a phenomenal amount of moving parts there. But maybe an element of healthy control freak in there too, that single-mindedness to a vision.
Yeah, I would say, and I've heard from reports that Wes Anderson has a lot of control, and if you're not on his vision, then you're not in the movie, you're not on the set. Would you say, like, being a creative at that level, you kind of would have to have a lot of control of a lot of elements, and even though it could be unpopular, or maybe it's not the nice guy thing to do, or whatever it is, you stay on the path of what the vision is that you're trying to execute.
Yeah, and then you realize that I suppose that the skill there is how you communicate that, because I remember, running a studio years ago, and I learned really, really quickly no, actually, I didn't learn quickly. I learned really, really slowly this lesson, actually. If you communicate in a way that is friendly and diplomatic and in a way that you think is giving agency to people, sometimes it's too soft and not taken seriously. And you, of course, don't want to swing in the other direction. So, it's a real fine art, I think, sticking to a vision and while at the same time, particularly with a team the size of Wes Anderson, it's like, you don't want to feel like you don't have any input. So there's so many other soft skills, the assembling of that team, the communication and giving of agency to people. We've all seen David Lynch blow his top in the behind the scenes when he's wanting to have more freedom and more time spent on a scene. So it's a bit of a dark, strange art, I think, but one that we really have to expose ourselves to when we're working as a sole trader. If I have a vision, I can just go and execute that and no one can tell me otherwise.
As someone like yourself that's been an artist in so many different ways and so many different disciplines, from like making music videos to doing design to doing photography to whatever it is that you want to create, do you think it is in this day and age like important to sort of keep yourself playing with creating with different mediums, or trying like different things instead of maybe just being in the one lane doing the one thing forever?
So much. And maybe even being open to where they come from. Like, if I'm honest, I don't really find time to play that much these days or do it intentionally. But the handful of times that I played in the early days, and you were there, you and I did it, we'd muck around, grab cameras and start weird little projects. The dividends of those few little sessions that you do can last you for years and years. Artists like Jeffrey Smart and Bill Henson, two artists that come to mind that my high school teacher told me about. And just having them as an anchor, they still bleed into what I do now. You know, the way I see scenes with people is entirely informed by how Jeffrey Smart painted a streetscape. So, and even now when I'm getting obsessed with plants, I'll go out there at night and shine a little torch on them and go, oh, this looks amazing. Okay, I'll just take a couple of shots. Okay, now I'm inserting that exact thing into shooting wedding decor or table settings. And it's all from that tiny little moment of play in the garden that I thought maybe wasn't a moment of play.
That's really cool. And I know you've been getting obsessed about gardening. Tell me about
Yeah,
it.
it's taken over.
It's taking over.
Fast tracking the 80-year-old Italian man craning over his tomato trees. So, yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna say I probably spend 2 or 3 hours out there at the moment per day. And if you saw the size of my garden, you'd go, "What are you even doing in there? It's tiny." Like, how do you
I
spend
love
2 hours
that.
in there? But I've crammed about 40 fig trees into a 2 square meter, 3 square meter greenhouse.
And how big's the fig tree get?
I had one that was 8 foot tall crammed in there, and the rest of them are like, somewhere between 1 or 2 feet tall and,
Yeah,
and
but they're
short.
going to grow big, aren't they?
Yeah.
So if you get like 40 of them, how big are these things going to grow?
You find yourself Googling, how do I prune a tree really, really quickly? And then learning root pruning and things like that. So, yeah, but some of them want to take off. I've got a few varietals that originate in Russia and Spain, and they just grow so fast. So you're like, oh shit, some people get their thrills with a runaway horse. I get my thrills with a runaway fig tree
That's pretty cool.
growing chaotically in a pot.
Do you own your house?
No.
So they're in someone's backyard.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
these fig trees.
That's why they're in containers. I'm like, nothing can go in the ground
Oh, okay.
because
Okay.
I'm like, hopefully in a year or two, I'm going to have to move.
So you can bring the fig trees with you.
Totally,
Okay.
100%. Yep,
Okay,
yep.
that's good.
And the joy of fig trees is they grow really fast, so I can give away heaps of them. So I've got, 40 or so of them, and I'll, over the next year or so, give away 20 or 30 of them.
Do you feel like right now you're having a lot of downtime with like, gardening and things like that, and that sort of leaches through to your business and your creativity?
I like how you use the word leeches, and I'd say one informs the other. So if I spend 3 or 4 hours a day hanging around with figs, I would say as a result my business slows down.
Okay.
I'm not working on it. So it's probably in the other direction a little bit, but I'm okay with that at the moment too. Yeah, like I'm in this weird position of getting sort of less work here, but then the biggest commissions I've ever had overseas. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
in a
because from
weird
the
kind of
outside,
spot.
it's sort of like from the
Don't
outside,
use
from my
social media.
perspective, of what I look at when I see you doing a lot less but bigger things. Like you're taking a lot less smaller steps but bigger strides. And so do you feel like you've moved into a space now where maybe like you're saying like you're playing less, or maybe you take on those less smaller clients and things, and you're able to actually take your time and be more intentional of like, oh, I just got this bigger opportunity and I do have space for it because I didn't fill it up with all the little things that I didn't maybe enjoy doing all the time anyway.
Totally, a bit of that, and I think part of that too is being free and finding that joy in spending a bit more time on these jobs now. And again, when they're people working in Hollywood, when they're the most amazing photography rep and designer in all of Australia getting married, you kind of the stakes are high, and you've got to really, really deliver something like quite incredible for them. They've got to open that gallery and go, holy shit, he's like, there were four of him, and part of it's work of art, part of it is Verite photojournalism. How did one person do this? Like, that's my goal. That's not me going, my work's amazing. Like, that's my goal, to have the couple open it up and go, holy shit, how did this happen?
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, there is the space for that for sure at the moment. And I had a big couple of years personally, so I'm kind of letting a transition occur now with that. And I think over the next year or two, I'll wind the ball up again, and I've got a book idea and other bits and bobs. So
Yeah, right.
give it another good lash.
So you've given yourself a little bit of space. You've had a hard couple of years, and now you're feeling like you're starting to see the future and like maybe some new projects on the horizon.
Yeah, like just chipping away at a couple of. It's funny, like I treat it like, we could talk about the whole workout culture, where the moment you hear about anything fitness industry related, it's all about optimizing. Like
Everything's optimized.
Yeah, you talk to a coach and like there's no sort of middle ground. It's like you need to do the best routine for you and maximize it. Go to failure, take these supplements, XYZ. And that's such a bullshit culture in fitness where anyone that's done actually any opinion worth their weight in salt, in my opinion, will just go, actually, the most important thing is do the thing you can do regularly and everything else then falls into place. Yeah, sure. Look after your diet, calorie deficit, but do the thing you can do regularly. Like I do 20 minutes of calisthenics every day because all I have to do is go slap myself across the head and go, idiot, put your shoes on, turn a timer on, go to my garage, everything's there. And I'm moving my body more than I ever have. And I think it's the same with creativity in these projects. Like I'll open up Figma, chip away at a little book design, and then suddenly I look at it now and go, oh, you've actually designed an entire broadsheet for this Antarctica trip you did years ago where nothing lives in print. And now you've half designed a book of your wedding images over the last decade just through doing 5 minutes here and there, instead of going, I'm going to commit to knocking this out in a whole week.
Totally.
You know? So working out for me, your own brain's happy operating space, I think has been pretty helpful. Yeah.
It's interesting that optimizing. I actually seen, of course, a reel that I seen not too long ago, and it was talking about the optimizing culture, and this guy was essentially saying like, we talk about like optimizing your sleep and optimizing your diet and the perfect exercise, but the biggest thing for longevity and the lowest hanging fruit is like get rid of the one thing that you shouldn't be doing over and over, whether that's like drinking a can of Coke each day or smoking a pack of cigarettes.
Vaping at 6 a.m. as soon as you wake
at 6
up.
a.m. So it's like the easiest thing. You don't have to do all those other things. It's just like, what's the low hanging fruit right there that's right in front of you that you can do right now?
Totally. Do a walk around the block. Doing what I was doing for a little while there and smashing a whole box of Magnums at 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, maybe stop doing that.
Well, you're saying like, so with your creativity, it's almost like the low hanging fruit. You're not optimizing of like, all the projects that I want to create, but you are slowly chipping away of like, this is a low hanging fruit. I can like design a book, and then after a while you're like, oh my God, I've actually almost already finished it,
Totally.
It's just sitting there ready to go.
And then you can't help but look at it and go, oh, well, it's silly. I've kind of done it now. So
I might as well release it.
I might as well release it. There's still other barriers to entry, like, budgeting the 15 grand to get this amazing printer in the Netherlands to do it, but little things like that. But just chipping away at things is a friend of mine, Jen, phenomenal director, filmmaker, Jen Bailey. She's a great inspiration to me. She gave me a little book end of last year, which is, I don't read poetry. I don't read books. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't prioritize the time. And she gave me a book, 365 days of happy poems, and they're all dated. And so you just open it every morning and there's a happy, positive, optimistic poem. And suddenly you're a reader every single day, So some people just know exactly what you need. And Jen is one of those people.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you think, I'd like to hear your thoughts on perfectionism. Like, do you ever get crippled with like creating something like this? And like you just said there, like you're looking at the best printers for the book and stuff, because of course, all the projects that you create are at a high caliber, but how much is it? I'm sure they're all probably falling short from what you actually want to create. And how much do you actually push yourself to put something out there?
To be honest, I haven't created that much, and this is not being self-deprecating. You're prolific. You've created these courses in a finished format, books, physical objects. I know that activating things is my challenge point for sure. So, but I know perfectionism is part of that, and there's other cofactors. But I will fight black and blue for perfectionism being just having a branding problem. I think if you change the word perfectionism to just caring, it suddenly is looked at in a different light. Like if you look, filmmaking teams are full of perfectionists who just are fighting tooth and nail to have an element of that film look right. And I hate to just pull up an example of, Hollywood bro culture, but as a fan of David Lynch as a person, he's one such person who is committed to the highest version of a thing's self. So I know I'm just contradicting what I said before about the whole fitness thing, but with creativity, I'm like, I think back to how Dad made us treat music when we were kids, and we'd always see him. I mean, I've regaled this to you in a different podcast, but when he listened to music, it was a full body experience. You saw his eyes roll in the back of the head. He just drifted off, his head nodding, and you couldn't help but see that as a kid and go, oh well, if I'm gonna bother listening to music, why would I listen to music that doesn't have that effect on me? And so from that, we became intense music fans who wanted to discover who the artists were, the lineage of the genre, why this artist started doing that thing, who they were inspired by, what share house were they in. And you get this beautiful vocabulary for how movements in music came up and how different schools of assembling melody were formed. And that became deeply interesting to me. And so with creativity and with the work that I make, I'm kind of like, why wouldn't I do what I can to give couples that feeling? Or if I'm doing a personal brand shoot for someone, why would I just smash out what I think is a crisp and clear corporate shoot? Why can't we treat it a little bit more artistically?
What happens for you if you feel like you fall short?
Oh, how do we peel apart that question more? What happens? Okay, well, what would be an example of falling short? Like,
Well, you say, for instance, you're putting out this book and you're like, I want to get it printed somewhere really nice and stuff. And then that way, when someone opens it up, they don't just see my images, they can feel it, the texture of the paper, what it looks like, the design element. Like, so it's a full body experience of like opening up this. And this is what I imagine you're thinking when you like release this book. So what happens if you do create this thing, but it's not the pinnacle of what you want to release? You fall short on the vision. But you release it anyway.
it's a tough one to think about with the book one because I'm gonna, self-funded, do it my own way, no publisher. There's less variables that are getting in the way of that. So, I'll make the book that I want to live as an art book rather than a wedding book, and hopefully. But I have seen that happen with weddings. If I have a bunch of film cameras fail on a shoot, and then suddenly this big part of your voice is compromised, and you're maybe not delivering the work that you've kind of promised by what you're putting online, and that sucks. I've done this for 10, 12 years, so of course there's been a couple of moments like that, and it really blows. So in a client context, if I feel like I fall short, my motto is like, you've just got to give. Like, I see all people infighting in forums about stick to your contract, and he puts on an American accent because it's mostly Americans fighting over the contract and going, the contract is law. It's like, no, the contract is not fucking law. The law is, does the person in front of you feel cared for, and what have you done to fix a problem? So, I've made decisions when I've stuffed up that people have found very financially irresponsible from a business point, because if someone's unhappy, I don't care about retaining any, ethical or weird real estate from that transaction. It's like,
Totally.
fix the problem at all costs, whatever that cost is. So,
Well, going to your own projects, and saying releasing this book or something, and talking about perfectionism, you said perfectionism is a form of caring.
yeah.
I want to know more on your thoughts of what perfectionism is, and would you release something under your own name that you felt like it wasn't perfect?
Yeah, but I would be consenting or agreeing to what the imperfect bits are. For example, I know images are going to end up in that book where I'll be like, oh, if I had just put more flash on that film shot, then it wouldn't be muddy and washed, and I'm accepting that image feeling out of sync with what is in there from a quality point of view. So those things for sure, but there'll be areas of non-compromise, such as, I'll do the paper testing beforehand. I'll get the samples done. I'll be happy with the paper stock and the colors, everything signed off on. So the margin for error there should be non-existent. But I guess your question's highlighting, but what if it does fuck up? What do you do?
What I want to know is if you created this book, and I assume it's like photography and design, and you know, you went to Antarctica and you created something. The book's irrelevant to what I'm talking about here.
Gotcha.
So you created this thing. Would you, if you're not 100% happy with it, would you put it out anyway? Or would you go like, you know what? I want to go back and create the best thing that I can possibly do. And that means if I need to pull it apart and start redesigning some things, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to take that extra time and I'm going to release something that I love.
Oh, yeah, that. 100% that. Like, that's harder if the project's bigger and there's more dependencies in there. But for example, if I'm doing this broadsheet newspaper of Antarctic landscapes, there's a lot less pages. If I get close to the finishing line and I'm like, oh, it's not it, I will stop it and redo it. And I've done that for loads of shoots. I've exported wedding galleries and gone, oh, don't really like the tone now that I look at it, and gone back and redone hundreds of images. So yeah, I will. But it depends on the size of it. Like, you know, if the personal project is I'm building a house and the house is 90% built, well, kind of fucked by a certain point, and you're just going to have to get that tin of paint and go, Hail Mary.
So like at a certain point, there's probably as much polishing that you can do, and there's probably, you have to start letting it go.
Yeah, I think inevitably, you know, to be fair, it's never going to be 100% perfect. You're always going to look at it and go, there's a few little niggles, but I can stand those niggles. If they're niggles that I can't stand, then yeah, hell no. Like the wedding one, for example, I want to have 100 images, over 10 years of shooting, 100 images, mostly on film. And I want it to speak as a sort of art coffee table book. So there's a lot of curatorial hard decisions that happen before they even get laid out in that book. So if I get to the end of that and I'm like, don't like it, I'll commit to putting its release off for a month or two.
You said for this book you would self-publish. Is that because you're a control freak?
Do you want to quote the great Randy Blythe as he responded to a 15-year-old boy who met him in a bookstore and asked, "Hey Randy, how do I become in a big band like you?" And Randy's like, "Do you want the honest answer or the fake answer?" "I'll give you the honest answer." Hang on, what was the question?
You've got to continue.
I've totally lost the question now. The book, releasing the book. Self-published. Okay.
Control freak.
There's two reasons. Yeah, control freak a little bit. Not that I wouldn't trust a good editor, but the other part is I just don't know that infrastructure, and I'm probably too lazy to be prepared to hock it to a whole bunch of different places. And I kind of find it terrifying in a way that is maybe not interesting to me to solve. Whereas if you self-publish, you get 10, 15 grand together, you produce 500 or 1,000 copies, and then just sell them over, essentially the way I'm looking at it is an expensive business card.
Yeah.
Rather than I am making this to get into the artistic zeitgeist.
Yeah.
It's a calling card and something really nice.
And
to
like a
give to
personal
couples.
project.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool.
I have no desire or interest in being a, remembered sort of photographer from an art point of view, but can I make this now for cheap and control it all and give it to people? Awesome.
I love that. Yeah, why do you want to create it?
Yeah, actually, maybe one we can ask my therapist. Part of it might be, I think if you put something in physical form like that, it kind of validates 10 or 12 years in a career where you're waking up every day going, fuck, where's the money coming from? Will I get this next job? You know it, especially from the early days. If you're working for yourself, most of the time you're waking up going, fuck for the first
Don't worry,
half
that's still happening.
Still happening. Yeah, right. So
we're on the same page here.
I think having a physical product makes you go, fuck. But look at this, I made a thing. It's like, it's something that's not passing through, through the process of experience and shooting and editing and delivering. It feels like a finished thing.
Yeah.
That's the appealing part of it for me. And then I can give it to people. I can give it to couples.
Do you think,
know.
like, as you're a creative artist and also a service-based person, right? So there's almost two different titles going on here. So one is, if you're a service-based business owner, I wouldn't say necessarily you're an artist there, because you're creating a commissioned work for somebody else, and there's expectations and everything. So you might wake up every day and then go like, oh, I've got to go and create this gallery for someone, and this is what they want, and this is how I'm going to deliver it. But then when you're talking about creating a project like this, where it's like a photo book or something, you almost become your own client, and you are like, you're seeing this as like, oh, okay, I've worked for my clients. How do I create something and go back to what I want and produce and print and make and put out to the world?
Yeah, that the exciting part of that for me is going back to the purity of why we started this in the first place. Why did you pick up a camera? You were drawn to light, you were drawn to the tapestry of people, all those exciting things. And this is, if you do this for 10 years, you're taking hundreds of thousands of images, probably potentially into millions. You can't not take a bunch of bangers in there that stand out as interesting images anyway. It's going to happen. If you're around firing an iPhone out every day in the streets, you're going to accidentally stumble on something that's a great image. So we're all in this vocation where we're doing that through habit and hopefully making great images for our clients, of course. But the appealing part of making a book is just peering through that and just finding those little gems that are, if you decouple them from the service part of the commission, are actually really great pieces of social anthropology that captured how people dressed, how they gathered, and all of that sort of thing in a really interesting way. That for me is the cool part of it. And you can just put aside the whole service side of it for a moment.
The waking up, looking for the money side of it.
Yeah, and is this fulfilling my obligations as a service provider, which is of course the most important thing.
Is this going to get me the 5-star
on the
review?
job site? Yeah, and you can just put all that aside for the moment and go, this is not about service. This is about like anthropology. To use an ostentatious word.
Oh, I love that.
So, and we all know, if you look at images of streetscapes from 30 years ago, they inherit this sense of value because now the cars just aren't there anymore, and that jumper, that Esprit jumper, people were wearing in the 90s doesn't exist, and we are building that day by day in this job. So if you put a book of images together that are purely for the art and social anthropology, they will inherit some really interesting value, I think.
That's really cool. And over time, they get more value.
Totally, yeah. Which is why I love like dining table scapes at weddings, where you've got fashion, handbags, gathering, chaos, all happening at once. Like that for me is my version of a streetscape.
You know what I really loved when I was in 2013, if we can dial back, if you remember back in those days,
13 years.
Like way back in those days. I remember there was a big trend, you would have remembered this, but it was like, have an unplugged wedding. People are getting out their iPhones, and they're getting in the way. And I remember, for me, my big argument, I always go against the grain, against everybody else. And I was like, I love the plugged-in weddings, because if everyone's getting out their iPhone 8s and taking photos, this is cementing a piece in time.
100%.
When now, even, like if we go on 13 years ahead, if I go back and look at all my old galleries, you should see the old relics of phones that people are using. Some people are even using flip phones to take these photos, right? And I'm like, that now solidifies exactly the year that it actually happened. And in 10 years time, 20 years time, 30 years time, it becomes even more important. So, and an example of this is like, if you go back and look at some of beautiful photography from like the early 1900s in New York, and you see all these people standing there with some big old bellow cameras that are shooting large format film, and they're all in the way of the photo. You're not mad that you see those cameras in the photo. And in fact, it's the opposite. You're like, oh my God, look at that. You can see that point of time, and it solidifies when that photo got taken.
Totally. Because when people have cameras embedded in their bloody iris in 100 years' time.
Exactly. It's like, what is this thing?
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, huge fan of that. And, and also it's not disruptive to taking away people's agency. Let bloody Uncle Ken take his damn iPad photo.
Exactly.
Like, don't take his joy away. You're stiff.
I love Ken.
Yeah, right.
Do you feel like you're in a stage of your career and life, because you've been doing this for quite a while, same as myself, where you do think a lot more now about why you started doing this in the first place. Why did you choose this path? And would you go towards like going back to that and doing maybe like an exhibition or showcasing some of your work in like different ways and like playing a little bit more there and going more towards the love of photography or art or creativity, opposed to the optimizing of making more cash from whatever it is that you're passionate about?
Oh yeah, like
Or are you just looking for cash?
look, I'm conscious that cash matters more in my demographic. Like when you're staring down the barrel of, not we won't go into the sticky stuff, but what if you're staring down the barrel of having to care for parents and, family and all that sort of stuff. That they're big questions, and you have to answer that with pretty intentional moves, I think. So I kind of fell out of love with the art a little bit, not from a service point of view. I've always given art to the people that book me, but I lost interest in going in being an art photographer for a while there. And I think now I'm kind of like, I don't want to be a forever photographer. I don't think, maybe I want a nursery and selling fig trees in a bunch of years. But
would you say, like, I mean, this is something that I sort of grapple with. Like, I wouldn't consider myself a photographer. Like, I haven't picked up a camera in a long time, but I would consider myself as a creative. And when I look at that, I might pick up a camera in 2 years' time and start taking some photos. Am I a photographer again? Am I not now? Like, so we like label ourselves. But when I think of being a creative, I think of like, me working in the garden and I'm creating a space. That's creativity. Me being on a podcast, some people go like, do you miss being a creative and doing photography? I'm like, man, I'm on a podcast right now. I'm creating conversation. Like, I'm trying to get better at speaking on this thing or whatever it is. Or like right now I'm writing a book. I'm like, I won't say I'm an author, but I'm like, that's what my world is right now. I'm talking to publishers and things like that. So, do you sort of like almost have a push and pull with like maybe the labels of like what you're supposed to be, a designer, a photographer, or do you sort of see that there's creativity in everything that you do and it doesn't matter if you drift away or come back?
Oh, everything, yeah. I love words, and on any given day I wake up and think, maybe I'll start a copywriting agency today. Maybe I'll start a bricks and mortar cassette store today, because cassette's going to come back. I think creativity is everywhere, and I always say one of the most creative people I've ever known is my friend Sarah, who works as a, C-suite business type person for big multinational, has no conventional artistic output in her day-to-day, but holy crap, she is hilarious. She can tie together politics, humor, social context. She is the type of person where we would write down quotes of things she said, and until we had a whole bunch of quotes, and then for her 30th birthday we got your mate Jeff the Pef to illustrate a book of her quotes. He did like 80 or 100 illustrations or something ridiculous, and that to me was such a potent example of where creativity can live. Like, she is creative because that's the energy she has and how she talks to people.
Yeah, you can't take that away from her.
Cannot take that away from her, exactly.
Even if she falls out of love with one of the mediums.
Yeah, totally. She will always be creative because her mind is just, a set of fireworks. My creativity now comes out when I'm craning over my fig trees and poring over the leaves and just marveling at how this damn patch of soil can make these giant juice balls. Like that to me is the highest level of creativity. And, when I was in Antarctica for that Antarctic project, there was a real unlikely moment that drilled that home when so there was 80 women on this ship, on this science expedition, largest all-women expedition to the South Pole ever. So there were soil scientists, pilots, spider milkers, Nobel Prize winners. It was a crazy mix of people. And one of them, they all had to give little talks on what they did. And one of them was talking about soil, and she broke down talking about soil. And at the time I didn't quite understand it, but then a few years later I started learning about soil and soil microbiology and how dependent everything is on it, and how wild it is that the amount of sheer organisms in a pot of soil can produce the things it can. And it just started blowing me away. And I'm like, that's an incredible expression of creativity for that to be there, but to also identify it and to love it. Like, creativity is everywhere, and big advocate that everyone is. So whenever someone says, I'm not creative, and I was one of those people before I went to university to study design, I remember telling my dad, "Oh, I'm not creative," and everyone says it, but everyone is. It's just how that is expressed.
Like how in tune you are in
Doesn't need
exercising that muscle.
Yeah, totally. And agreeing it and seeing it and accepting that I am creative and this is the output, whether it's something.
Do you think a lot of people struggle with the labels? Like I've talked to a lot of people in different industries, say like a photographer or a videographer or something, and they've been doing it for 5 years and they're like, now I don't know, I'm losing my identity and I'm kind of falling out of love of whatever it is. And a lot of the times maybe it could be like you put yourself in a title and then that means you've got, it's your identity,
Oh, yeah. Hang on. Can you rephrase that one for me?
Do you think people struggle with attaching themselves to the title, which means that's their identity? So if they lose their title, which is I am a photographer, I am a videographer, then they lose their identity.
Yeah. And best thing you can do is just smash that identity, I reckon, for sure. And there's other versions of that too. Like it's that thing of what are you attached to and how is it influencing how you make things or how you see the world? A version of that was sitting in an airport one day with my bloody heaps of Instagram posts and following 1,000 people and going, I got 2 hours to kill. I might unfollow 1,000 people and delete every single post on there. And I just cleared the whole thing out. And it wasn't a profound moment. I'm not making it this bigger than it is, but it was an interesting moment of going, now I'm not attached to this representation, this label, this body of work that is old. Highly recommend it. So I reckon, smash the identity. Kill your darlings is the phrase that the writing world
get rid
uses.
of it.
Yeah. Whatever you fall in love with, just sort of,
So you think maybe that identity could be holding you back?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Whatever you label yourself as, you'll kind of it'll end up informing what you make, for sure. That's a real potent one, I think. And, that's part of the maybe reason I call myself a dating service on my wedding Instagram. It's because that is exactly what the product I offer is. It is a dating service. I am not a photographer. Can wield a camera, hopefully,
Dating service with a camera attached.
Yeah, make people think a little bit. There's joy to be found in all areas, including removing that label, I think.
So you're kind of saying like you're actually stepping away from the niche of like, hey, I'm a wedding photographer, and stepping into the niche of like, hey, I'm Oli Sansom.
Yeah, a little bit, but then, and at the same time, then starting an account where I didn't have my name attached to it, No longer Oli Sansom Weddings. It is some other silly name that makes no sense and no one can work out.
And why did you do that?
For that exact reason you asked the question. I wanted that identity separation. I wanted, if people Googled my name or whatever, it didn't come up with like your wedding, and that for that to be the level of permanence. And the other thing with giving it a different name is, and maybe you experience this with Free the Bird, if it has its own identity, it's its own character, and you can give it its own hat and its own jacket and its own tone of voice, its own personality, all of that. When I thought of the name, I wanted it to sound like it could be a punk band or a death metal band or who knows what it is, It can be anything.
Yeah, I love that.
So actually...
we're probably... Yeah, I'm not going to...
A friend's partner is a phenomenal fashion designer, and I saw her account the other day called Cakey Sportsman or something, and it's got this doll that is like... It looks like a Janny Korn. So Janny Korn is a New York candle designer who makes candles as if they were designed by children. And it's got a doll as the avatar. And I just went onto this account going, hang on, I know her fashion work's phenomenal, but what the hell is this cakey sports girl? Like, what the fuck? And it made me want to peer into it and find out what this little identity is. So I think...
So it actually like intrigued you and pulled you in more than if it was just someone's name.
Totally. And there's still... so little of that happening in the wedding industry. If I had my time again now, hot tip for the wedding photographers listening.
So if someone's just starting out today...
Yeah, look, if I was rewinding 5 or 6 years ago, instead of calling it Bride's Atlas, I would have made up a fake name like a writer, like a ghost name, That would have been the cleverer thing to do, rather than having a name that, could be a band or whatever. Just make up a damn fake name.
Like Chet Baker.
Exactly. Musicians do it, writers do it. That's what I would have done now.
You could be inspired by a lot of, like growing up in the 90s, a lot of musicians that always did this. If you think about musicians, right? Like,
Done for decades.
yeah, if I think about musicians, let's say prolific ones from the 90s was like a lot of rap. And so if you get rap, let's say you get like Curtis Jackson, he names himself 50 Cent.
Yep.
And so he's still a personal brand, but 50 Cent can be separate to Curtis Jackson, and he can act different, and he can show up different, and he can rap different, and he can like release things differently. Or a really good example is if you look at someone like Marshall Mathers, which is also Eminem, which is also Slim Shady. And he talks about how he's got 3 personas, and he releases music under the 3 different names, but they all have a different personality, you know. And so going forward now, 25 years later, he just released an album that's like called Death of Slim Shady. So he's killing off one of his personas that's no longer working. But it's interesting because when you look at that, that's from an artist perspective, but it's also pulls you in. There's so much intrigue and so much story, but it's all made up story, and it's performative. Like you're creating a performance. And I remember Jack White talked about this. He didn't want to be the authentic musician. He wanted to be a performer because that's what he is. He's an artist, you know. And so often today, you see a lot of us, and we're like trying to create the authentic version of ourselves.
Authentic.
But what if the authentic version of you is the performance that you want to create? You know, so
Totally. Or the authentic version of that character you've made. Like in TV script writing, they have a thing called the Bible. So there'll be a Simpsons Bible, and it's a typology of all the characters that are in there, the relationships they have, tone of voice, all that stuff. Make up a little Bible for this character, you know? Adam Sullivan, hugely popular fitness influencer. He's doing a different thing now, but how his come up actually happened, what blew him up was all the other fitness influencers were yelling and bellowing, and it was hard and heavy, and he spoke in this little soft voice, and he spoke on a banana phone, and he had this character he built that just stood out from every other fitness influencer, and it was hilarious.
You know, speaking before about perfectionism, do you think it's easier to release some work under a name or persona like that because it could be something it's not actually attached to you? You know what I mean?
Yes. As soon as I even going further back and as soon as I took weddings off my Instagram account, this is real nitty-gritty practicals here, but as soon as I created a wedding account, suddenly I'm like, oh, I have a place to share all these other images, florals, whatever. Whereas I would never share that on my moody Oli Sansom account because we only do very, very dark and moody portraits, you know? Now there was a home for that. And if you have that, give that its own identity, there's a place for other work to live under that identity rather than being attached to you as your soul, as your heart, you know, your life's work and all that stuff.
I don't know if you ever heard this concept. This is something that I heard a long time ago, and I'm going to butcher it a little bit. But they talk about, like, if you go back 1900s and further back from there, a lot of creatives or artists would always talk about a higher power, which usually is an angel, and the angel's looking after them. And if they create something that they love, it's because the angels have their favor. And if they create something that they don't love, it's just a test, and like the angels just weren't on their side. And because of that reason, they, you know, you can skip out on imposter syndrome or like on judgment and stuff like that because you're always crediting something bigger than yourself or something that's just outside of yourself. Fast forward to today, where we've kind of merged the angel into ourselves, where we are the angel. And then so everything that we create, it's us putting ourselves on the line. And then we thank ourselves for the good work that we do, but also we, you know, hurt ourselves for the work that we don't do. Do you think like creating something like this is almost like you are the angel now, and then that's the work under a different name, under a different persona? So you can go back to separating the two. It's not just you as the artist and that's it.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty vital now, actually, now that you frame it that way, especially because so much of, without going deep into the whole, curmudgeonry of the algorithm and what we're served, but especially because there's so much of that space filled with being your authentic self and being real, and popular ideas get cottoned onto, and then suddenly if you're not doing that, then, you know, you're not doing the right thing, particularly in our industry, particularly in wedding photography or service-based photography. There is a big swell in what is and isn't acceptable in the industry. So I think it's actually vital to create that identity separation and go, just kind of throw a smoke bomb in the corner of the room over there. And I think the opportunity is huge, but I think literacy in being able to do it right is probably low overall because we're so captured by just the content machine, just putting stuff out, going, got to be visible. It's got to be, just got to be done and out rather than good. You know, I've barely
Please, the
interacted with social
algorithm.
media, and I'm not too worried about it. Has it impacted the bottom line? Yes, but the point is to like come back in a way that stands out.
You know, right now is a hot topic. A lot of people talking about personal brands, creating a personal brand, and then consolidating. And if you do have a separate business, like bringing it all into the one thing, so that way you go on deeper on the personal brand. Do you think right now there is a huge space where you could create a personal brand that is separate to Oli Sansom, like a personal brand where it's almost like I was saying before, like 50 Cent and Curtis Jackson, where you are creating that persona, but it's still your face. It's still you showing up for that brand.
Oh, Bobo, I'm having trouble.
I guess it's sort of like you're showing up as, you could have two personal brands almost, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, there's Oli Sansom, but then when he shows up in that business, that's a different Oli Sansom, you know? So, but you're still creating a personal brand. It's just that maybe it's for a different brand, you know?
Yeah, bloody hell. I would love to see more of that because there are people whose day jobs it is to do that, and we call them actors.
Yeah.
Like, we want to see what they morph into in their next film or series. That whole world building thing is actually really endearing, and yeah, I think there's no reason not to do that. You know, if people want to question the authenticity, or that's on them and spending their time doing that. You know, if Jai Long comes storming in and like going, I'm gonna like be hyper visible and in this space, and like, you know, we've all got the and you've spoken about it. I don't want to use the IS imposter syndrome thing. You know, you've all got that thing of like, can I play in this space? Am I allowed to? Blah blah blah. But if anyone has an issue with that, that's really up to them spending their time on it. So I think it's pretty exciting to me coming up with a different persona. When I had this little styling business, I use the term business loosely, called The Arborists, where we made neon installations. My business partner and I had our own little personas in that I wouldn't use or come out as on my wedding business, you know?
I do remember that.
We were rat bags, and I think that's the fun of it, because we are all multitudes. We are all 1,000 different people that have kind of agreed to be one person at this current point in time. So why not tap into this other person that we were?
You know, I'm just sort of figuring out something a little bit profound here. What if you're a creative and you really struggle with confidence or perfectionism or a whole, you know, there's a smorgasbord of like things that we sort of go through and we struggle with when it comes to our own work and putting it out to the world and creating personal brands and visibility and all this kind of stuff. What if we created a brand and a persona, and we chose that we had confidence, we chose that we were meant to be at the table, and we chose the attributes that we wanted to have in our personal lives, but for that brand, so that way you can step into doing those things?
I think if people knew that that's the only way, they'd probably just go and do it. Because if we think about what it feels like to be on the receiving end of healthy confidence from someone else, so someone who's confident talking about their work, someone who, I don't know, in a banter dating context or whatever, is confident in themselves, like, we know that is an enduring characteristic. We know that if someone's happy talking about their work confidently and not pessimistic about it, not self-deprecating, we won't fall into that negativity. We want to join and bond with that. So I think if we just knew that it's actually the only option, then we'd probably just do it, because it's all part fake anyway, and that's okay.
So you're saying instead of like creating a different persona to do all of that, you should just actually choose that in your main persona.
You could do both. If you've got two businesses, one of them you could be, I'm going to be the like 120% confident version of myself, and then the other one, I'm going to be a little bit self-deprecating to be #real and all that sort of stuff. I think you can play with it and dial it in either direction, for sure.
It's kind of a cool thought to think when you're going down this train, hey, because what we were talking about before is like, you know, oh, maybe I'm not creative and stuff. And right now we're talking about branding in a creative way, but also how to overcome a lot of these obstacles that we face as creators or as artists.
I think if, there's so many, it's so juicy. I love this topic so hard. But it makes me think, even from a communications copywriting point of view, if you I talk about this loads, the idea of confidence versus desperation. If you are desperate to communicate a point, if you're not confident in your offering, you're going to like write a passage a mile long so that the people in front of you couldn't possibly get it wrong. Like, here are the offerings and this is included, that's not included. If you're really, really confident, you're going to sweep half of that away and maybe be blunt, maybe be gregarious and fun, maybe be casting out a little line that makes people curious and not be so prescriptive and I really hope you didn't miss all of the things I offer, you know? So
so you probably don't need to like over explain things and you don't need to put as many filters in the way. You can get straight to the point.
Totally. Like I'm not saying I'm a perfect manifestation of that by any means, but when I was thinking about that idea of confidence versus desperation, like that lives out on my homepage. It's just blunt force graphic, like brutalist graphic design. It's like, here's a menu, it's all open and there's some images, good luck, happy days. Like people aren't silly. They'll poke around, they'll have a look. It is the worst sales page on the internet. Does that matter to the type of couples who inquire with me? Not one bit. It's easy, straightforward. There's the work. Thanks for coming.
Do you think like you showing up like that as well, it's portraying and showing your confidence?
Yes, 100%. And the other part of it though too is I'm confident in showing work that is maybe a bit left of center. Like I'm hopefully broadcasting, hey, I know what I'm doing here. I'm visually literate and I'm not just giving you like 200 images in one gallery so that you know that you get all of the prep and all of the ceremony. Like you're showing people you're confident and literate, and I think that is quite contagious. And they're like, hang on, what's this guy about? You know, like you never really know for sure, so you can only have a punt, but I think that's the fun of it at the same time too.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, have a crack.
So you're just saying just go and give it a go.
I mean,
all of this
could be the worst advice possible. Have a go. It might set you back 4 years, but you know, give it a crack. I'm also living proof of that happening, you know, in multiple points. But you can always offset it. You can always have a crack with the communication and go, I'm going to take a huge risk here, and then I'm going to be more strategic and fortify myself on the other end. So I met with someone once for a little mentoring session. Actually, my only mentoring session. The TLDR from...
Your only mentoring session.
Oh, yeah, terrible. Well, I like getting my education from outside sources, but I'm like, no, I'm going to go in industry. And I had a great session with these fantastic dudes. And but the takeaway from that message, from that mentor session was, you're not a photographer, you're a wedding planner harasser. Like, your full-time job is to reach out to planners. That's it. That was kind of the takeaway from that session. And... So to the point of taking risks, you can take a big calculated risk in one area and then maybe offset it with a bit of gentle strategy on the other. So maybe you upend your website and make it total chaos. But then just to offset that, maybe you go, I'm going to reach out to 10 planners this week. You know, you're going to balance the silly with the sensible.
You know, so we were talking about optimizing before.
Yep.
And what's really interesting is... you can not optimize like you're talking about. So you show up confidently and I'm not optimizing my sales page and I'm just I'm putting it out into the world and you take it or leave it. And then on the other side, you can over optimize. And I've experienced that and I've been thinking about that a lot. So let me give you an example. A few months ago, I was in New York City and I wanted to go and see a jazz band. And I found this underground jazz band that looked off the charts when I looked at Instagram and all the content. It just looked so amazing. So we rocked up there and I didn't realize you need to get a ticket, but they had tickets at the door. So I bought a ticket and me and Lilu walked downstairs. We got ourselves a drink. They told us a couple of things like, hey, you got to get minimum 2 drinks each. It's preferable if you get food and the band starts in like 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, sweet. So we sat down, had my first drink and then I had my second. And then the music went for about 30 minutes. And then they were like, we're just going to have a rest now, interval, get another drink or whatever. And as this happened, the staff walked over to us and said, okay, so that's it. You need to finish that drink and get out now. And we were like, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, you've booked the 2 drinks. You've got the 30 minutes of watching the music, which costs a lot. And then it's like, and then now we're serving this table again. So you got to leave. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, I wasn't even halfway through finishing my second drink, and we only just felt like we just got there. But they've optimized this place so much that they've lifted up everyone that was just sat down, just getting ready, because they're trying to make some more money. And when I was looking at this, I was like, the reason why this place is not that busy and I could buy a ticket is because they've over-optimized their sales. And they've lost all charm, because there's no way, one, would I ever come back. I would never leave a review. And even talking about it now on a podcast, I was like, that was the most unenjoyable moment, was supposed to be one of the most enjoyable moments when we were in New York.
And yeah, what you said,
overcook it.
It's bananas, totally. And what you said about the ticket sales was bang on. Like, if it's sort of part empty, you know, you can afford to do that if you're banging. Like, if you're a Shanghai Village dumpling in Melbourne, you go there partly for the theatre of being kicked out after your table's finished their stuff, because they've got to turn the table and there's a line out the door. And it's fun how brash and blunt and uncaring it is, because we're used to really good service. But that's only fun if, you know,
if they got the demand for it.
They've got the demand for it, and it becomes part of the brand. If you're a half empty jazz bar, yeah, maybe not. People don't realize that, yeah, giving, being outwardly giving, it swings back. You know.
So just to finish off on the last question, right now, are you optimistic of the future of your industry, of where you are, like the micro, you know, where you are in the city, creativity, with AI and with everything? Are you feeling optimistic, or are you feeling pessimistic? Are you feeling bullish about the future, or are you feeling worried?
I think worry is, there's no point to that. There's always like positive and negative players. Like, you hope that, particularly with the AI stuff, how deep do we want to go here? Like,
you can go as deep as you want, man.
Like, you know, you're not worried about the water usage, because great engineering minds and a healthy upswing of advocates and activists will see that will get solved over time. You know, that's a short-term problem. You hope that the good-hearted players win out in that space, and that AI ends up solving proper problems instead of replicating artists' work or doing, you know, disingenuous bad things. So I'm kind of like, I feel like that'll kind of sort itself out. The exciting part, there's always exciting things. That's why I love, you know, forever optimists like Joost Bakker, who's a phenomenal florist, maker, engineer, artist out here in Melbourne. He's very well worth checking out. But he's an example of someone that chooses optimism and actively promotes the idea that we can be optimistic and create projects that solve things even when things are bad. Like, he's relentless with that. So I'm choosing, as a bit of a native cynic, I'm conscious now of choosing optimism more with this stuff. And, you know, I have the power to use these things how I want. I have the power to also recognize that with all of that crap coming up, like, it ends up falling down a little bit, and analog culture comes back. You know, the next generation want to faff around on their phones less. They're less interested in social media, maybe. And hopefully you get these big organizations like Spotify and whatever bloody other AI things are going, oh shit, now we're struggling because the kids just want to bond in small groups and play cassettes. Like, I'm optimistic that sort of thing will happen. So that's where I kind of choose to put my attention. And we've seen that happen in photography. We've seen film come back. We've seen a generation of buyers want something that feels more handmade, and I expect that to continue. Yeah, fuck. Thanks, man. Yes. Yeah, you don't fuck around, you powerhouse.